One of the best clubs in Uruguayan football is Club Atlético Peñarol, and they're also one of the best clubs in Football Manager to poach some very good youth players. Let's go and take a look to see how well they've done. So in Simulation 1, Peñarol managed to produce some absolutely blinding players. Anything above 130 I consider to be a very good youth player. Anything above sort of 110 to 130 is still a very good player, but you can see there they've got 7 players that have come through. The big name, who is already 138 current ability, is Sebastian Silva, who is arguably on the cusps of the Uruguayan national side already. We've also got ourselves a very good young goalkeeper in the shape of Nahuel Ruiz, probably not how it's pronounced, but at 20 years of age, he's looking good. Mentally looks very, very good. He is only 5'9". In a different 5-season simulation with Peñarol, you can see they've got one absolute standout player in Agustin Barrios, who is a left-back and defensive midfielder. He looks pretty good already at just 19 years of age with 155 potential. They've also got another, 10 players, maybe 9 players with 130 or above, and then a whole bunch as well. Going all the way down to sort of 100 potential is actually not terrible, depending on what league you're playing in. 100 current ability will certainly do a job for you. In a third simulation with Peñarol, they've actually not had a particularly great set of intakes, with their highest potential being just 138, but they do have a fairly large quantity of players with 120 or above, which is always pretty good. Even going down to sort of 100, it's not terrible, let's face it, but it's not the best. Sebastian Suarez is the main man, who looks quite good at the moment, so I'd be willing to take a punt on him, full well knowing that he's only got 138 potential. In the next simulation over 5 seasons, Peñarol managed to produce 4 very good players with 140 potential or higher, with their biggest name being Martin Barriero, who is a right back and left midfielder. Not quite sure that makes any sense to anybody, but there we are. Barriero at 18 years of age has 146 potential. You've also got Fabian de Rosa with a little bit less potential, but he still looks very good. In fact, I'd argue he looks like a better player currently. Then again, he is 2 years older than Barriero, so you'd probably expect that. So in the final simulation then, Peñarol have managed to produce another player with 163 potential. Pablo Villa is a central midfielder, or he's a midfielder. He can play anywhere along the middle, even as an attacking midfielder or right winger if you really need him to. At 19, he's already got 52 appearances, 163 potential there, which is obviously very, very good. They've also got 146 in. This man is Rafael Liccardo, who is part Italian and looks like he's playing quite consistently for the Italy under-21s at the moment. 18 caps, 7 goals to his name. He looks very good. He does look very, very good. And he's wanted by Juve, so it looks like he might actually become Italian. He might decide moving over to Juve, and he's just going to stick with being Italian. Not only are they good in England, Liverpool FC are also good in Uruguayan football, especially when it comes to bringing in very good young players. Let's take a look to see what sort of players they can get through over the course of 5 seasons. Whilst not an outstanding set of intakes in the first 5 seasons for Liverpool FC, they do still have 5 players with 130 potential or above, and you can see already Sebastian Aguirre and also George Borges are their standouts. Aguirre is a goalkeeper who at 20 does not look very good at the moment, but obviously he does have a bit of potential behind him. And Borges, who again doesn't look particularly good at the moment, but we know there is some potential there. Already 2 games for the first team as well. In a different 5-season simulation, Liverpool managed to produce 2 very, very good players, and they're already looking very good. Christian Salazar, 127 current ability, 153 potential. I'm surprised he's not playing in the Uruguay squad. He's got 4 under-20s cap, 36 appearances as well for Liverpool in the league. He looks very good. And then Agustin Pereira, another central defender, maybe more of a midfielder this one. Similar potential, similar current ability as well. So 123 current, 145 potential. In the next 5-year simulation with Liverpool FC, they managed to produce a player with 170 potential in the shape of Washington Silva, who is a striker or attacking midfielder with 8 finishing. Where is that finishing from, mate? You look very good. You've got really high attributes in certain places and really low in others. I would be definitely determined to work on your finishing, or maybe train you up to not be an attacking midfielder, or maybe you're a playmaker. That could be your role. They've also got a couple of players with 140 potential, and then a whole host as well, sort of 130s all the way down to the 120s. There's a whole load of players there. In the next simulation with Liverpool FC, they have managed to produce one very good player in the shape of Kevin Mendoza, who is part Venezuelan, so maybe Uruguay might want to give him a cap sooner rather than later, just in case he decides to switch allegiances. He looks pretty good already, attacking midfielder, got some decent numbers all over the place there, with 163 potential, obviously going to be very, very good. 3 players with 142, and then one with 142, 2 with 148. We've got Agustin Martinez, who he's decent, to be fair. As a central midfielder goes, he's very decent. And then we've got Christian Bruschi as well, who, as a winger, looks pretty good at the age of 18. So, decent set of intakes there. Another 5 seasons with Liverpool and another few players. 151 potential for Ignacio Silveira, who looks good. I do quite like the look of him. I don't know what it is. A shape like that for an attacking midfielder, that's really good to me. I can't explain why, it just looks really good to me. 151 potential for him. They got Facundo Lopez as well. 123 current ability, 147 potential. Again, he looks pretty decent as a defensive midfielder. Maybe not so much a tackler, not a ball winner. Certainly could be sort of a deep line playmaker, something along those lines. Whilst not being massively successful on the pitch, they've only got 4 Uruguayan league titles to their name. Danubio are one of the best clubs to be picking up very good at new gen players from in Uruguay. So Danubio have had a very strange time in this 5-season simulation so far. They have been relegated and promoted twice. So they are currently down in the 2nd tier, but they have managed to produce an absolute blinding player with 180 potential in Alejandro da Silva, who doesn't look amazing at the moment, but considering they're in the 2nd tier of Uruguayan football, he should be getting game time week in, week out. He doesn't have a contract though. They've also got players with 176 potential, 165, 148, 146 and 142 potential. A lot of them have already moved on, and you'll see, because I think they got relegated, or maybe they didn't even sign contracts because they got relegated, they've moved on to other clubs around Uruguay already. Now, as we saw from last season, Danubio seem to have this tendency to let players leave on free transfers. Augustin Doldan is an example of this. He has come through their youth intake and they've just let his contract lapse. I assume he didn't want to sign a new one. Maybe they got relegated again, but he looks very, very good. Wanted by lots and lots of big clubs in Europe. With 175 potential, that is pretty mad. They've also got Javier Barrios at 151, 2 players at 146, Damian Nunes and Franco Motta as well. So they're getting some very good players through the Danubio youth intakes. After another 5 years simulation, Danubio have had another up and down kind of campaign where they have actually been relegated to Tier 2 once again, which is why their top player, Santiago Maidana, with 156 potential ability, is actually playing for Peñarol, but he did come through the Danubio youth intakes, and he's good. He's very good. If I found him, I'd be willing to pay £3.3 million for him. I think he's definitely worth that amount of money. They've also got 3 players with 140 or above in Guala, Pereira and Mendes as well, so they're still producing the very good youngsters, even though they have dropped down into the 2nd division. This time around, Danubio have not been relegated, or at least they're not currently in the 2nd division, and they have managed to produce some pretty decent players too, with 154 potential. First up, we have Matteo Antonelli, who is a left winger, who looks pretty decent, only 18 years of age, so plenty of time to grow there. And then we've got Alexander Leites, who is central midfielder. I like a good central midfielder with a nice round, nice even shape there. Leites is good. They've also got Agustin Lopez Baez, who's an attacking midfielder / striker with 149 potential, and then a whole bunch of players with 130, and then even more with up to 120 potential as well. So a whole host of very good players coming in from Danubio. So over the next 5 seasons, Danubio did not get relegated in this save either, and they have produced a player with 178 potential. Nicolas Alvarez, at 20 years of age, is very, very good. He's worth peanuts as well, 220 to 650,000 pounds, and he's wanted by 3 of the clubs in England and PSG. So he's off to Europe, I assume, in the January. So yeah, he's obviously very good, 178 potential. They've also got a player 155 in Carlos Silveira, who again looks pretty decent at 19 years of age, looks like a pretty good winger, can do a decent job, which is, I do like that kind of winger. 3 players, with 140 or above, including the centre-back. And then, how many players is that? 6 players with 130 or above. Actually, looking over the course of this 5-season save, they've got a lot of players with 120 or above, which is actually very, very good. And once again, another player who they've just let his contract lapse for some reason. He doesn't look very good though, does he? Everybody knows Nacional in Football Manager, and everybody knows that Nacional are the club to go to if you want to get yourself some good, very, very good young Uruguayan footballers. So let's take a look to see how they've done. Over 5 seasons with Nacional, they have produced a fair amount of players with 120 potential or higher. Going down, actually, their worst players are awful, but after that, they're actually not too bad. The big name there is Carlos Rodriguez, a goalkeeper now 19 years of age, already with 1 appearance to his name. Did concede just the 1 goal in his debut, but he's got an appearance nonetheless. 2 players on 151 with John Marshall as a very good left back. I'd look at him and I'd want to sign him straight away. And Lucas Salazar as a striker who has finishing technique, teamwork and work rate through the roof, which that's a very good striker for me. In a different simulation, Nacional have managed to produce a player with 173 potential ability, and he looks very, very good at just 18 years of age, getting some game time as well for the first team in the league. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets more caps for the under-20s, maybe pushed up into the Uruguay national side. Maybe not playing too much, but he looks very good. They've also got 154 potential on Manel Herreras, who is also part Spanish. There's 150 potential on Franco Perez. Plenty of very good players coming through the Nacional youth intake. It was only a matter of time before Nacional produced an absolute world-class player, and they have done so in the next 5-year simulation. Sebastian Vaz, even though he's only 16, already looks pretty decent. What position would you say he was? Personally, I'd be pushing him into midfield, although he's only got 9 passing. So he's 5'10", could he be a centre-back? Maybe. With 186 potential, arguably you can play him wherever the hell you want and he'll do a decent job. They've also got Antonio Badel, who is 157 potential, 137 current ability, moved over to the MLS already. He looks pretty good, doesn't he? But obviously with 137 potential, or current ability, sorry, you know he's already going to be good anyway. So another simulation, and Nacional have done it again, but this time they have done it twice. 2 players, 174 and 179. Santiago Mercado, at just 16 years of age already, he's ridiculous. He's absolutely ridiculous. If I was looking through the Nacional team and I saw this man for that value, I'd go for it, because at worst, this is as good as he's going to get. But you kind of have to assume he's going to get better, and that is a bargain price. And then the big man with 152 current ability, 179 potential, Juan Pablo Duran, is obviously a Uruguayan international with 4 caps and a goal to his name. Looks very, very good. He's wanted by probably teams in Europe. It is Liverpool, Manchester City. So it looks like he might be off to the Premier League. And for that value, that's decent money as well. That wasn't the only players they produced either. When you look, they've got 1 player at 160, 3 more players at 150 or above, 2 at 140 or above, and then what was that? 3 more at 130, and then all of that as well with 120 or above. So, Nacional are always producing these good players. A somewhat disappointing 5 seasons this time around for Nacional, even though they've got a ridiculously amount of good players. With 130 or above, you've got all of that, 10 players I think? 2 players with 3 players, so we've got 159 in Ricard Falcon, a left back. Looks ridiculous, doesn't he? For that money, buy him. Just buy him straight away. 159 potential. Andres Plada as a striker looks insane. Buy him for 1.2 to 3.7 million pounds. Buy him. He scored 47 goals in 92 league appearances. Sign him up. He's ridiculous. 155 potential there. And then just coming through the last intake by the looks of it, Jonathan Iglesias, who doesn't look amazing, but he's only 16 and he's got 150 potential. They've also got 2 players with 140 or above, and then a whole host of players, 5 more players with 130 or above, and then another load of players with 120 or above. And weirdly, a Moroccan guy. My personal favourite club in Uruguay to steal youngsters from is Defensor Sporting Club. They seem to produce very good young players very consistently, so let's take a look. With 3 players breaching over the 140 potential mark, we've got Fernando Zeballos as the main one there, an attacking midfielder, only 17 years old, so obviously not going to be amazing at the moment, but we know he does have potential. At 144 potential ability is Alejandro Marti, who is fast, and that's probably about it. Mentally, not awful. And at 143 we have Raul Cabrera, who's also currently 120 current ability. Mentally and physically looks very good. Technically lacking in certain places, but good dribbler, good first touch, good technique. Now this 5-season simulation with Defensor is very interesting. Obviously at the top of the list we've got Bruno Lopez at 150, we've got a 147 there, we've got a 140 and lots of 130s as well. But if you look, they did not really have a bad youth intake, apart from poor Matías Cabrera down there. He's got potential ability of 6. But any one of those players from David Dennis upwards is good. They have the potential to be playing a professional level of football at a different league, not the Premier League, but still, it's a very good intake. Let's take a look at Bruno Lopez. I like him. I like Bruno Lopez. He's got lots of high numbers in places where you want them. I don't care if he can't tackle or mark. It's not what I want him for. Another 5 seasons with Defensor Sporting in Uruguay, and some ridiculously good players have come out of this intake. They have got 5 players who are 150 potential or above. The star man being Daniel Alves, the striker. He's a winger. He's got no finishing. He's very fast. That's all he is, really. He's got no technical ability, but 175 potential is obviously very good. Leonardo Cabrera is a striker with no finishing ability. This seems to be a theme in Uruguay, by the way. Strikers don't have finishing ability, but at 17 years of age, 165 potential. Then we've got a few more players as well. We've even got players who've moved over to St. Louis City. Are they in the MLS? I don't even know. I don't think they are. But he's moved over to America, which is always good to see. But they've got, again, a whole load of players with 120 or above, which is arguably the sign of a half-decent youth player. A pretty decent set of intakes in the next simulation for Defensor, with 155 potential for Federico Campagnari, who is actually Italian. He's got 8 under-21 caps for Italy and a goal as well. Obviously, I think, is he declared? He's not declared. So he could switch allegiances, head over to Uruguay if he really wanted to, but he looks pretty decent already. They've also got a player with 146 potential who is Bolivian and Spanish. Is he even part Uruguayan? He's not even part Uruguayan. He sees no benefit. Fair enough. But he, again, looks pretty good. For a 19-year-old, he's got decent shape for a centre-back, needs a little bit of time to develop, 146 potential. If we look as well, that's a decent amount of players with high potential. Anything above 130 I consider as high. Anything above 150 I consider ridiculously high. So again, Defensor producing some good youngsters. And in the final 5-season simulation with Defensor Sporting Club, I think that's what they're officially called, they've got some very good players. 3 players who I think would be world class, or not world class, but very, very good. Diego Trindade? Diego Trindade is the top bill here with 18 passing, 18 technique. Looks very good, 160 potential. Diego Silva, 154 potential on a central midfielder. I like him. I don't know what it is I like him. I'd arguably push him up to be a more of attacking midfielder position, but I do like the look of him. And Sebastian Fernandez, a 152 potential. I'd arguably push him back to be a more central midfield role. But anyway, they've got some very good players. And then the 130s, that's a lot. That is 6 more players with 130 or above. And then a whole host, what was that, maybe 12, 13 players, 120 potential or above as well. So they are producing consistently good players throughout their 5-season simulations. Maybe Uruguay is not your cup of tea. Perhaps you want to look maybe over towards Africa and maybe countries like Tunisia. If so, check out this video on screen now.